Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 8, 2015 meeting of the City County Planning Board. If you would, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get into our meeting, zoning cases and so forth today, we do have a special presentation we'd like to make, and I'm calling our Vice Chair, Alan Younger, to present a resolution that we've adopted to Barry Lyons, who is leaving us here. So, Alan, would you please join me?
A resolution honoring Barry A. Lyons upon completion of his service as a member of the City County Planning Board. Whereas the City Council of the City of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the Board of Commissioners of Forsyth County, North Carolina, appointed Barry A. Lyons to serve on the City County Planning Board, and whereas Barry Lyons served the citizens of Forsyth County and Winston-Salem as a member of the City County Planning Board from February 2010 to December 2014, and whereas he has invested time and energy to thoughtfully understand and consider each item presented to the Planning Board for consideration during his tenure, and whereas he used his prior experience as a neighborhood leader to be a strong advocate on the Planning Board for neighborhood interests and citizen involvement in planning issues, and whereas he represented the City County Planning Board in both the South Central Winston-Salem and Northwest Winston-Salem area plan updates, public involvement processes, and whereas he worked along with his fellow planning board members in preparing and refining the award-winning Legacy 2030 comprehensive plan. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Barry A. Lyons is recognized for his volunteer service to the community through his membership on the City County Planning Board. We extend sincere appreciation to him for that service and wish him health and happiness in his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that this resolution be made a part of the public record and a copy of this resolution be furnished to Barry A. Lyons. Signed this 8th day of January 2015, Arnold G. King, Chairman, City County Planning Board. Thank you very much. I'd like to just make a quick comment. I enjoyed getting to know Barry, and one of the things that Barry enjoyed getting to know me was because he was the newest planning board member until I came along later in 2010. But I really enjoyed all of the perspective that he brought. I think that he's a great thinker, and he definitely represented the community entirely, not just his ward, his area, but the entire Winston-Salem and Forsyth County community. So thank you very much, Barry.
Barry.
Thank you. I've enjoyed my time. I've enjoyed getting to know each and every one of you. I would say this has been very educational for me. I've learned a lot, not only from each of you as fellow planning board members, but the staff has taught me more than you can possibly imagine. I have at least this much understanding of the planning process. I think when I came on, I had this much. I started in this position thinking that the crux and the most important thing to any area was the success of neighborhoods. I'm leaving, and I feel even more like that. And I hope as our area grows, one of the first priorities of this board and of our elected officials will be to keep our neighborhoods healthy and strong, because ultimately the success of any area is the people who live there. So thank you for 5 years of wonderful experience, and I'm sure I'll see you again in the future. Thank you.
Before we get away, Barry, any other board members have any comments? If not, I certainly want to thank you for your service and tell you how much I've enjoyed working with you. And this is really one of these bad news, good news things. I mean, the bad news, Barry's leaving. The good news is his business has gotten so good that he's had to step back and pay more attention to that. And so we're real happy for you and wish you much health and success.
very much.
And look forward to you coming back and visiting with us.
I'm sure I will sometime. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Barry. Okay. Today's meeting is being broadcast live by Winston TV Digital Media. It'll be rebroadcast at 10 a.m. Friday morning and again 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Our first order of business today will be the consent agenda. These are items for which the petitioner is requesting a withdrawal or continuance, or items for which staff has recommended approval and no one has signed up in opposition. Any public hearings today, each side will have a total of 12 minutes. Don't believe we're going to have minutes. I'm going to skip some of these other rules unless we end up with a hearing. I will say that most of the items, or the items under Section B of our agenda, require final action by the appropriate elected body, either the City Council or County Commissioners. So as such, votes taken today are recommendations to go forward to those bodies for their consideration. If you're addressing the board today, before you begin your comments, we please ask that you give us your name, address, and zip code for the record. First item is the approval of the minutes of the December 11 and 22 meetings. Any board members have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Lamb, second. Mr. Mulligan, second. Mr. Younger, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Now call on Aaron King to present our consent agenda.
Good afternoon. First item is item B1. It's docket W3247, and this is a general use rezoning from general industrial to general office for about 3 acres on the east side of Ivy Avenue, just north of Liberty Street, and you can see the subject property there in yellow on the map. If you look at the area in general, it's a mixture of industrial and business zoning in that area. When we reviewed this, the North Central Area Plan does recommend industrial for this property based in large part on due to the existing zoning out there. However, staff did feel the general office zoning was a reasonable request, and we would recommend approval of GO zoning at this location.
No one has signed up. Is anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move approval. Second.
Motion, Mr. Lamb, second, Mr. Mulligan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next item is B2. It's docket W3204. And this is a final development plan for a car wash in GBS two-phase zoning. This is in the Pavilion development, which the board has seen several final development plans in this area over the past few months. Again, this is for a car wash on one of the frontage lots. This is a site plan that's been submitted, and if you're looking at this, Haynesmall Boulevard would be to the left, and then the access drive leading in, Oxford Station Lane, would be to the bottom of this site. You can see on the mouse cursor, that's where the main car wash building is. And of course, the circulation leading in and around to it. As we've talked about on several of these, there were some conditions for elevations in the first phase of W3204. These are the elevations that have been submitted with this. We've gone back and worked with the architect on these, and staff now believes we have elevations that meet those first phase conditions. So we would recommend approval of this request.
Is anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move approval. Second.
Motion, Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next is B3. It's docket W3174, and this is a final development plan in an HBS two-phase zone site. This is for Bojangles Restaurant. You can see the parcel in yellow there. This is on the west side of Union Cross, just south of 40. This was part of an HBS, the original HBS rezoning that was approved in 2005. You may remember maybe a year or so ago, we did approve a final development plan for a Sheetz down at the corner of Glen High and Union Cross. And this is the site plan that's submitted with this. Union Cross would be to the top of this picture. The access drives to the right and to the bottom. Of course, the restaurant in the middle, surrounded by circulation and parking. This rezoning also had some conditions for elevations in the first phase. The main one being that the building primarily be brick and material. So these are the front and rear elevations for the Bojangles and the two side elevations. Staff has reviewed the elevations and the site plan, and they do comply with the first phase conditions, and we would recommend approval of this final development plan.
Anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move approval.
Second. Motion, Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Last item is C1, and this is minor subdivision exception 2013-2. We had this on your agenda last month, and it was continued to this month. And at that time, we told you that we needed to work out some language with our county attorneys, what we had in the ordinance. There were some questions about that. We've met with them. I think we've reached an agreement, and we'll probably come back to you at your January work session to talk more about that. We would recommend continuance of this item to the January work session.
Okay, this is not a...
Move approval.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Lamb, second, Mr. Mulligan. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, committee reports?
No committees to report on.
No committees. Okay, how about a staff report?
Yes, I want to
Do
do
I
a
have a
couple.
staff to report on?
We do have staff report.
Okay.
First thing I want to do is I want to introduce one of our new staff members who joined us 1st of December, Walter Farabee. If you'd stand up, Walter. Walter has been a city employee for several years. He has been the minority and women's business coordinator for the city for several years after he got out of graduate school. But he is a planner by training. He graduated with master's in planning from UNC.
Chapel Hill.
School of Planning in Chapel Hill. That's right. One of the premier planning education programs in the country there.
That's right.
And I say that having myself gone to a different school. But also near and dear to my heart since I've been there many times and participated in a number of things there. But Walter, in addition to his master's degree, he did his master's paper, you might be interested, on downtown Winston-Salem revitalization.
Wow.
And he is a Winston-Salem native. So we are very glad to have Walter with us. He joins us on the comprehensive planning and implementation team. So he is getting into area planning and is going to be working with us on economic development issues and neighborhood revitalization issues as well. So again, we're very glad to have Walter with us. And second thing I want to mention is just give you a status report on area plans. The North Central plan, we had our final meeting on December 16th. It was a community drop-in meeting after we had had the previous 3 meetings. Melinda's the planning board liaison on that. She came by, has been at all the meetings there. And so that will be coming to you for one of the briefings at your work session coming up with public hearing at your February meeting. Southwest Suburban Plan kicked off in December 4th, and then we had our second meeting just this week on Tuesday. Alan is your liaison on that, and we had very good attendance at our last meeting. About 20 people came there. A little lighter crowd that came to the first meeting there, but made up for it in the second meeting there. And so that's going well and is on schedule. And then we'll be kicking off the east-northeast area plan. That's sort of the East Winston area. And that kickoff will be in mid-February. We're still trying to pin down the dates. We have, I think, 2 or 3 council members who have some of their wards touch in this area, so we're trying to confirm the dates with them. But it'll probably be sometime in mid-February. And Clarence is our liaison for that one coming up. So that's where we are on area plans. And then next thing, Aaron or Gary, could you put this up on Elmo? Since this is the new year, we've closed out the building permit activity for the year, so I thought you'd be interested in seeing that. So for the total year, city and county, if you combine them together, and this unfortunately does not include Kernersville. They report their own, and it doesn't come into our system at all. So don't know what the Kernersville numbers are, but if you take the city and county with the exception of Kernersville, $364 million worth of construction was permitted. That was up 2.4% from the year before. But residential construction has been up over 25% over the previous year. And the single-family portion of residential construction is slightly over half of that. So you got a pretty healthy chunk of it multifamily, and you'll recall we've been talking some about the importance of multifamily development in our future as we get more people and lifestyle changes are happening, and the demands are changing, the nature of the market is changing, and so that's kind of an interesting figure there. But single family is recovering, it seems to be, so this is an increase over before. Non-residential construction is up 62.5%, so that's a pretty healthy increase there. Additions, alterations, and renovations are down 26.7%, but we've had a very high level of that in the past. Witness all the things that have been happening downtown and all that, so not surprising that would be down. New construction comprises about 64% of all building activity right now.
Would
Yeah.
525 Vine, would that fall under additions, alterations, renovations, or would that fall under non-residential construction?
That would be under additions, alterations, and renovations, because there's different categories of that
Okay.
in there.
And then how many, the absolute number of single-family residential building permits issued, do you have that data?
I think it was, for single family, I think if you count up city and county, we're probably talking somewhere around 500 for the year. So we're not having a lot of subdivision activity, as you know, but we have a lot of lots in existing subdivisions that are getting filled up. So we've been having a pretty healthy amount of single family permits being issued on those lots. So thought you'd be interested in those numbers there. The other thing is I want to hand out to you our bi-monthly newsletter. This is the January, brand new, hot off the press there. This got written right before the holidays, so I didn't have the final construction numbers by then. Well, I only had through November, so that first paragraph was just what I'm thinking on an annual basis, but it's pretty close to what we ended up with. Actually, what we ended up with was a little bit more than that. But then talked a lot about trends of construction and then how we're preparing for the future with planning activities. The other side is talking about the one of the highlights of the North Central area is sort of the area around Beatty Street near Wake Forest, and so some of the ideas for mixed-use development that could happen there in conjunction with Wake Forest, and then highlighting some of the planning staff changes. So that's the newsletter. Thought you'd be interested in that. As far as looking ahead to work session, we're going to have a pretty busy work session, so if it's at all possible for you to kind of pencil out the full 2 hours for the next work session, we're going to be pretty busy with a number of things. I'll just give you a few highlights. One is, you recall a few months ago, we kind of gave you a presentation that we were putting together for helping to explain the importance of multifamily development. Remember, you saw that and you gave us a number of very helpful suggestions, and so we have recalibrated that, and we've also embedded some video that TV 13 helped us produce that I think you'll find very interesting, that fits in with how the market is shifting in terms of people's preferences in terms of type and type of development and all that. So we got that. We have come up with a draft of a public art master plan. You remember we did a report on that at the end of last year, and you put into the work program, you approved in the work program, putting together a public art master plan. The city council has asked for it. Could be the county, might be interested as well, but we'll be reviewing that with you at the work session. We'll have the North Central plan that we'll be briefing you prior to the public hearing in February. We'll be talking about view corridors that is a feature in our UDO concerning signs along our major highways, so we'll be talking about that. And then we have that subdivision ordinance discussion about the process for minor subdivision exceptions that we just talked about on the agenda today, and some of the outcome of those discussions with the attorney's office. We want to bring to you in your work session and talk about that, because it looks like we're probably going to have to do an amendment to our subdivision regulations on that. So that's kind of a preview of what's coming ahead on our work program, but it'll be a pretty busy agenda.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paul. Any board members have anything for the good of the order here today? Mr. Mulligan?
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
See you.